Good afternoon, everyone. Today we're looking at lesson 16, practicing humility. Does anybody know what that is? Maybe in our story we'll find out. Our story is The King Who Wanted to Touch the Moon. Long ago lived a good king named Regis. In his kingdom there was a young carpenter named Derek who made beautiful wooden chests. The chests were sturdy and useful, and he loved to make them. Some of them were plain, but some were very fancy, such as the one he made for the king, painted purple and gold. King Regis was very pleased and declared Derek the royal carpenter. No one knew the purple and gold chest was designed to become an important part of the king's future. King Regis was not cruel or stupid. He served his country well, and land prospered. The people worked hard and cooperated with one another. No one went hungry. They were friendly with the neighboring kingdoms and kept the peace for many years. The king was grateful and his people were happy. Then one day he overheard the cook say to the assistant cook, King Regis is the best king we have ever had. And the king silently agreed. The next day the king overheard the gardener say to the assistant gardener, King Regis is amazing. He could do anything. And the king silently and strongly agreed. These thoughts that he was the best and could do anything filled the king's mind. He became displeased with anything ordinary, because the best king should only have the best of everything. His favorite carrot soup was no longer tasty enough, so he sent it back to the cook. The garden no longer seemed beautiful enough, so he ordered it dug up and replanted with flowers that would never wilt or die. The king found it hard to sleep because he worried about staying the best king ever. Each day he had to find another way to show that he was the best and he could do anything. He paced relentlessly back and forth in the silver moonlight. The moon was so bright and silvery that the king wondered what it would be like to touch it. Well, why couldn't he touch it? He could do anything. He immediately ordered that the royal carpenter be awakened and brought before him. What is the fastest way to build a tall tower? Demanded the king when the sleepy carpenter arrived in the royal bedchamber. The carpenter had no idea what the king wanted, but he immediately thought of all the chests he had made and answered, If you stack up all the chests in the kingdom, that would make a tall and sturdy tower. That is a brilliant idea. I want to touch the moon, so begin at once, the king commanded Derek. The carpenter was too astonished to reply. He knew it would be impossible to build a tower tall enough to reach the moon, but he thought it best to let King Regis find out for himself, so he went to work. Every chest in the kingdom was brought to the garden and stacked up. The king's purple and gold one was first. Then all the others went on top. When all the chests were stacked, it was not high enough to reach the moon, so the king ordered the carpenter to make more chests. Derek worked day and night, using every scrap of wood left in the kingdom, and all the new chests were added to the tower of chests in the royal garden. At last, there were no more chests and no more wood. The king announced he would climb the tower that night and touch the moon. Everyone watched in wonder as the king carefully made the difficult climb to the top. When the king stretched up his hand as he stood on the last chest on the top of the tower, the moon was still out of reach. But how could this be? He was the best. He could do anything. The king demanded one more chest be sent up. All he needed was one more. But there are no more chests, your majesty. The carpenter shouted up to the king. Then take one from the bottom and send it up, the determined king commanded. Derek knew the king's pride had finally made him blind to even the most obvious facts. There was nothing to be done but do as the king commanded. So the royal carpenter pulled on the handle of the purple and gold chest and then ran out of the garden as fast as he could. The onlookers all ran too. Of course, the tower toppled over with a huge crash, filling the garden with chests of every size and color. When every chest had fallen and the dust had settled, the carpenter was afraid to look for the king. But unbelievably, the king lived. King Regis returned to the royal duties with a very different attitude. One day he overheard the cook say to the gardener, "Our good king is foolish, but he is no longer full of pride." And the king silently and strongly agreed. So why do you think the King Regis wanted to touch the moon? What would you have done if you were the royal carpenter? How do you think the king was different after his experience? Those are some great questions. If you log on to our Facebook page, I will post the craft that kind of goes along with our lesson. So go ahead and look for that. I will see you all again next week. Bye.